Hello friends, JenkinsDota here, bringing you another Dota 2 video on behalf of Pugna.com. This is going to be part of the Surviving the Offlane video series, and in this video, what I'm going to be covering is a complete guide to cutting the creep wave at level 1. Okay, so why cut creeps in general right now? You may have noticed that in a lot of the recent majors, offlaners are almost always pulling the first creep wave, and there's an extremely good reason for this. The offlane, as it stands right now, is extremely fucking hard. That's basically it. If you're looking for an answer as to why people are cutting the creep wave, that's it. It's all based on a very simple principle. If you don't cut the first or second creep wave in a typical game right now, it's almost a guarantee that you'll get nothing from the lane, and that the enemy safe lane will have a carry free farming and have a free roaming support to just kind of do whatever the heck they want, because they don't have to go to your lane at all, because it's just so easy, with little to no consequence. So why is it actually like that right now? That's because the first creep wave starts so dangerously close to the enemy safe lane tower that an offlaner cannot reasonably stay within experience range on their own without also being in kill range. It's also largely because denies give 25% XP right now to a player who's being denied, so it's really bad to sit there and get denied, while the denying player actually gets that 25% XP as a bonus as well. So you simply cannot sit in the offlane and soak experience anymore. It's just not reasonable. Or you're going to end up with carry being 3 levels ahead of you at 10 minutes, which just is an absurd number considering that most heroes are around level 6 or 7 at 10 minutes. Lastly, it's because creep camps don't spawn for 1 minute now. So supports have nothing better to do than just sit there and try and kill you for a minute straight, which in turn gives a carry just a huge advantage because of the denies, which in turn makes it even more so that you're in kill and deny range in the future because the carry is going to be so strong. Because of this, the meta has shifted away from hard farming carries like Sven and Anti-Mage and more so towards heroes like Gyro and Luna, who are capable of both farming quickly and feeding off of offlaners who are up too far, which makes it even harder, consequently, for offlaners to survive in the laning phase. For all of these reasons, a much more volatile / crazy playstyle has become the standard way of surviving the offlane, which makes sense because Total Chaos obviously favors whoever would be in a terrible situation under normal circumstances. Included in this chaotic playstyle, being capable of cutting the enemy creep wave in creative ways has become a large differentiator between being a weak and a strong offlaner. So without further ado, here's some ways and examples of cutting the creep wave and when you should actually try to pull them off. So this clip is from a competitive game that I stood in for a couple of days ago, and it's a pretty good example of cutting the creep wave in a scenario where I'm against potentially a tri-lane, and I have no help in cutting the creep wave, nobody's contesting the rune with me, nothing like that. So it's just kind of like I go in on my own, do like a little bit of a stealth mission, and then I go grab the creep wave and try to get what I can in a very difficult lane. So what I do is I grab boots first because I'm against Razor, and then I placed a ward really deep because I can get away with it. As you can see that the Razor is, he shows up right after I placed the ward. He did not see me because, well, I have boots, he does not, so it's very hard for him to get, you know, into the situation where he can actually see me before I see him with my ward. Okay, so what I do is I go place the ward, which is, you know, you obviously want to ward as an offlaner, but then I run down here by the Roche pit, and this is something that only works on the Radiant side, because on the Dire side, it's very easy for the enemy team to get vision of you, so you actually have to smoke, and I'll show you guys an example of that after, but basically what you do, you go place a ward, and then you run down here by the Roche pit, you hug the Roche pit as much as possible, and then if I go to fog of the Dire, and I'll go ahead and play it just so you can see that they don't see me here. There's no vision because of these 2 trees blocking off right here. So there's a little bit of a sliver that you can actually walk in. If you hug the left side here, you can get up to this area without the enemy team seeing you at all, unless they have vision there. And there's actually something that I do just in case they do have vision there, because I've been killed a couple of times here. So I will go ahead and turn the fog on for both teams and go back to this. So you can see that I walk up this hill, and I kind of stand in the middle to give myself vision of, you know, to the left, to the top, to the bottom, just in case the Elder Titan comes to contest me, or the Ancient Apparition if they see me. But I notice that the Razor's not heading over, so very likely they don't know that I'm here. So I'm pretty comfortable at this point, but in any case, I like to stand here just in case they do come over. I can try to escape and kind of walking in a weird path and wasting their time. So I realize that they don't see me, and then I just walk up here getting ready for the horn to sound, and I'm gonna cut this creep wave whenever I can, whenever I see it. And I don't want to show in this tower. That's really important that you maintain the vision that they can't see you until the last second where you're cutting the creep wave, and then they'll head over a lot of the time to try to contest you. But since this is a competitive game, and these players obviously, are pretty high skill, at least for, North American players, this guy, he doesn't contest me, and there's a reason for that. It's not because he's some bad player who's just letting me cut the creep wave for free. It's because he realizes that an Abaddon against an Ancient Apparition, against a Razor, and against an Elder Titan, if he were here, there's nothing that they can do to stop me from cutting this creep wave, because all I need to do is maintain vision of these creeps, and they're going to chase me, and they have no stuns or anything. So what he does is he goes and he grabs his creep wave, and he's going to prepare to pull it between the tier 1 and the tier 2, just like I'm going to pull it between my tier 1 and tier 2. But it's great because as an offlaner, you actually have more options than they do if you do this creep wave cutting, because, well, just because of how the kind of lane setup is in terms of this side camp is here and things like that. So I'll go ahead and go back to player perspective and show you guys. So I just maintain vision of these creeps, make sure that they see me. That's why I'm kind of darting back and forth there. And then I hit the creeps as they're coming up the hill, because otherwise they'd walk away. You can actually see that they go to walk away there because they lose vision of me. And then I continue running, kite it for a little bit in front of my tier 2. I'm going to go ahead and pause again here. So here's the point where I see that the Razor is making kind of the intelligent decision and pulling the creep wave between his tier 1 and tier 2. So that gives me options. No matter what he does, I have options, and he doesn't. That's the great thing. But if the enemy safe laner pulls it to their tower, then you don't want to do what you're about to see me do, which is basically to push my creep wave into his. You want to make sure that the creep wave is as static as possible here, because then you're going to get a huge double wave here, and you're going to get more experience. But since I see him doing this, it basically means that the equilibrium is going to be the same. So I beat the crap out of my creep wave and then push it into him, and then I do a side pull. So if the enemy safe laner pulls it here into the tower, don't do anything, just kind of sit there, last hit, and allow yourself to get all of the easiest last hits and experience possible here. But you can see that I'm beating the crap out of this creep wave because I see that he is not doing that, pulling it into the tower. He's pulled it behind. And so I push into him, so that way these creeps are going to push into his tower, which means that eventually I'll get a double wave. And then also this opens up this side camp for me to pull. He does not have a side camp to pull. I have a side camp to pull. So this is going to be great for me. I assumed that the Ancient Apparition might contest me here, which, it happens, but that's okay. You're still creating a chaotic lane. You're still level 2. This still favors you rather than sitting there. And he does contest me, but I'm getting a little bit of damage on him. Maybe I could have gotten a pull off there. But even still, there's bounty runes spawning soon. There's camp spawned. You've kind of passed that 1 minute mark where the lane is absolute hell, and I'm level 2. So it's it's a lot easier if you can actually get away with something like this. And those are kind of the options that you have. So you can see that I'm kind of sitting here getting really ready to potentially pull the side camp. I see that the rune is spawning. I go over, I'm going to beat the crap out of this AA, which obviously as an offlaner you have to deal with the supports first before you deal with the carry, because otherwise they'll just kill you. But if I can get some damage on this guy, it makes the lane a lot easier, because then I can go get experience versus this Razor really easily. So I take all of his regen, or at least I try to. He TPs away. I get a free bounty rune. I get a side camp pull. And this lane is exponentially easier than if I were to just sit there and try to lane normally without cutting the creep wave. This next clip is from a pub that I played recently, and it's not me cutting the creep wave, but it is Stan King on support. And he told me, he's like, I'm going to cut this creep wave, I'm going to double it up for you. It's very, very easy to do with Riki and with Bounty Hunter, but this is something that you can do using the same method that I showed you in the previous clip of getting to this position. You can do the exact same thing. You don't have to be one of these kind of invisible supports. You can get there with a smoke if you can't do it without being in vision, at least if you don't think so. And you can do it by just kind of running out of vision, especially if you are on the Radiant side. You can kind of go up this hill like I showed you guys before. So what he's doing here is he's doubling up the creep wave, basically because they have really good supports for contesting the creep wave cut with the Sand King, Willow, and Visage. And just it's safer than a Pugna doing it. So what he does is he just goes and he grabs the creep wave, and you can see that he runs down this way because it's likely that the supports run over from this way. And yes, Sand King actually does go to run over. You can see he's kind of confused because he's trying to cut the Riki off if the Riki were to run back and go behind the tier 1 and tier 2, because that's what everybody does. But Sand King doesn't even know. He's like, okay, what do I do? Because the Riki just he doesn't actually cut the creep wave and bring it anywhere. He just kind of delays this first one. So these two creep waves group together, and that's why they call it doubling up the creep wave. And what this is going to result in is Well, in this case, this Visage actually responded quite well to it. He didn't pull into the tower. He didn't pull behind here. He's just kind of kiting it around. So we're going to have a double creep wave, and he's going to have a double creep wave as well. So this is actually something that favors the offlaner, because even though there's a Sand King here zoning me, it's a lot harder for supports to zone when there's a bunch of range creeps here, because if they come in, they try to right-click me, it's a lot more dangerous for them because the creeps will hit them, and it's gonna hurt. So you can see that I can pretty safely sit here and lane against 3 people. This also makes for a pretty weird equilibrium kind of stuff. It's hard for them to control the lane if they take aggro of the creeps, because their creeps will push into my creeps so damn quickly. So there's a few final things that I want to show you guys, but they're pretty minimal compared to what I've covered so far. In other words, I think I've covered a lot of the information regarding cutting the creep waves, and I don't kind of want to just recover things, but there's still 3 things that I kind of want to talk to you guys about. So number 1, obviously the most common place to cut the creep wave is right here. I mean, before people knew it was a thing, this is where everybody would do it. They would just go hide up here or here, and they would cut the creep wave and just grab it here, and that is the absolute easiest way to do it, but only if the enemy team doesn't know that you're going to do it. If they know that you're going to do it, this is a very easy way to die. But in any case, there's actually a couple of scenarios where you might be able to do it here. So number 1, you can cut the creep wave here if you have good level 1 and you choose to fight this early bounty rune here at level 1. You can fight that, and then you can cut the creep wave here because the enemy team will have screwed off and they won't contest you from this. Or if you look bottom and you see the enemy supports fighting your rune, then you know that it's just the carry up here and you can cut here. If people just don't cut the creep wave in your bracket, then you can probably get away with it here. But in a lot of the higher brackets, even, you know, on Smurfs, people will check for people cutting the creep wave in terms of offlaners, because it's just so common now. So I would say don't try to get away with cutting here unless you're fighting or unless they're fighting. Okay, another thing that I want to talk to you guys about is if you want to cut the creep wave on the dire side and you don't know for sure, or you're not feeling ballsy that the enemy supports aren't standing right here or here, then you can't walk up here realistically without them having vision of you. So what do? I know it sucks, but you can buy a smoke for 80 gold and you can smoke up here, and I like to hide in this kind of nook right here and then cut the creep wave. Just like I showed you guys in the clip where you hide here for the radiant side, for the dire side you smoke and you hide here, and that's exactly how you do it. It's very, very simple. An alternative is that you can buy a quelling blade and you can kind of cut through this tree area, find your way into here, cut into here, and then you can cut here. The only thing is it's very dangerous to run this way because that's likely where the enemy supports are. So chances are you'll have to run this way and try to double up that creep wave instead of going for a cut. Or if they have no stuns, maybe you can, you know, cut this way or run this way, and that's okay. So quelling blade works. Quelling blade also works on this side. You can kind of run up into these trees here. You can run up through here. You don't have to use the quelling blade. You quelling blade this tree right here, walk into behind their tower, quelling blade this tree right here, this one here, and then you walk in here. This is all open space, and then you can quelling this and walk out and cut the wave here. Or you can just kind of walk into this area and then cut the creep wave down here, quelling this tree here so you don't get hit by the tower once, and that's just an easy creep cut. If you're on a hero who goes for a quelling blade first, or you're like on a Bat Rider, Beastmaster, one of these heroes who can cut trees with their skills, that's a really great way of doing it. You could just cut the trees yourself and show up in an area where they're not going to expect you to cut the creep wave, which is really good because people are honestly expecting it these days, even in the lower brackets, because it's just so common. Everybody sees it happening in competitive, and everybody knows that that's basically the only way that an offlaner is going to be capable of winning a game these days without feeding. So that's it for this video. Thank you so much for watching, guys. I do genuinely appreciate it, and I hope to see you guys in another video.